I don't know if I feel... Kia ora. E uri au ki whanau apunu me whakatohia, ko Kathleen Ri, Pika and Frewin, I hope. I come from the iwi whakatohia and whanau apunu, and they are located on the east coast. This is a picture of my wharenui at my marae and my unwa. My sub-tribes, Te Whanua Nuku and Ngāti Patu Moana. I was raised in a small town centre of the universe, Kauro, biggest mill in the whole wide world. And I'm very, very proud to be a descendant of these people. My whakapapa comes through my matrilineal line. And if any of our Māori whānau know my whānau, it's a very strong line. Matrilineal being from my mother, her grandmother, her grandmother. Kia ora. My research topic is also about Urupā Tautaiao, but I take it in a direction where we are looking at rangatahi. So rangatahi is the word we use for youth. In specific, Māori youth, cross-tribal research, not from one particular tribe, but from many tribes. And also to that, our young people who also dwell in urban and rural spaces. It's a common thing for our young people sometimes to not live on their hokaina and to have moved away or moved overseas. So I thought it was quite important that we get the entire spectrum of what our young people have to say. So yeah. Ancient wisdom, modern sustainability, Māori youth in Urupā Tautaiao. So here on the first slide is a picture of some of our rangatahi getting ready to do a kind of like a significant, I guess you'd say, performance at a very important funeral that was held this year for our Māori king, Kinitu Heitia. The reason why I've used this image is to demonstrate that for us in the indigenous world in Aotearoa, we do not separate the generations when it comes to funerals, when it comes to death. As a child, you're brought onto the marae. Just to share from my own experience, my grandmother was a kaikaranga, which means she would call to the people that would come onto the marae. And as a little girl, I would sit there by my nan's skirt, being a part of it all and watching. So our young people, I believe, have something to offer because we also have been in these spaces for a very long time. And this differs to the Western world. In the Western world, funerals are normally kept separate from our children and our young people. It's almost viewed as if death is something to be feared, something to be sanitized, the young are innocent and something to protect. But for us, death is not to be feared, it is a part of life. It's systemic, we're holistic, everything is one big circle. Ka pai? So, just to reiterate, our young people are actively engaged in our scene. What that looks like is different for each of us. We all have our own roles to play. Whether that's sitting on the paipai, which is our formal speech area before you enter into the meeting house, or if you're like me in the kitchen, cooking the food for everybody. So the design of death is, in New Zealand, modern death, is toxic. As Hine Mātou touched on, it's the chemical embalming, the lacquered coffins, the need for permanence and individual memorialization is defuturing and it is toxic. In our death practices, in the ancient world, this was not the case. The design of the modern death industry, because death in the modern world has become a business, is taking our futures away as human and non-human. So it's taking the future away from not just us, tangata, indigenous people, but from our land, from our water, from our fish, our birds. It's all being impacted by this modern death industry. Young people in my research believe that if this is the case, if the modern death industry is toxic, it's defuturing, it's not going to propel us forward into the future, then it must change. Not that it should change or that it could change. Our young people are convicted that it must change. Next slide. This is a picture of Wahi Tapu. Wahi Tapu is an ancient sacred burial area, I suppose. And if you look at the screen, you can see there's a hollowed out part at the bottom of the tree, and this tree's name is Takitakiro, and it is located in Aotearoa and Whakatohea, and it is a part of our iwi has just settled last year with our government over some hara that has been a long time coming. But originally this tree was under the jurisdiction of the local council, and our iwi have gotten it back under our care. But this tree here is an ancient burial tree. It's where kōiwi bones would be deposited into the hollow you see in there. The reason why I think it's important to show this tree is because around it, well, back in the days, it would have all been forest. And majority of our ancient practices, no matter where you go in our country, reflect the environments that they are literally sitting in. Whether that be you're on the beach by the caves, you will hear stories about the kōiwi going into caves. If you're like Tūhui up in the bush by the swamps, you hear about the swamps like Matua Robert Powhare mentioned. The trees where the bodies would sit up on the atamira, on platforms, rather than going into the ground. They are reflective of the environments ourselves and also reflective of our relationship with our environment. So, all of our young people unanimously agree that it is possible to revitalise ancient traditional practices for the modern world. Whether that literally means we're going to start cleaning the bones again and putting them back in the tree, I'm not sure. That's still a conversation being had. But at the core of it, it's the idea that our practices should reflect the environments that we sit in. That we need to become eco-harmonious with our environment before it's too late. We as Māori kind of naturally do that. We're finding our way back to it, especially our young people. They're already active in the environmental activism space, sustainability. But how do we make that us? How do I feel like me in that space? This is one of those ways. I'm sure there's many, many more. But how do we practically begin to engage with the word sustainability that many people like to chuck around? This is a way. And being guided by our tupuna is very much us. Our young people have already begun the work. This is a picture of a working bee for the garden that you saw in Hine Mātou's presentation. You can see the big log, black log that lines the garden, and they were a part of that. Our young people don't necessarily have to lead the practice, but we want to get behind it. We want to uplift it. We want to learn. We want to make our mātauranga Māori accessible, not only for us, before our future generations to come, and to ensure that my 7th removed mokopuna can still choose to go to the Urupā if they choose to. Ka pai? Because in our world, we all know that global warming, climate crisis, environmental crisis is happening. It has arrived, it is here. So what do we do next? And how can we ensure that our pou of our culture, which is tangiana, but also going home to your whenua, is still made accessible for 7 generations to come? This is quite a normal thing for us as Māori to think about the mokopuna. To be mokopuna means grandchild. To be grandchild, descendant focused, whilst also looking backwards to our past for guidance. So, young people unanimously agree to embracing Urupā Tautaiao from across the country, whether they live in cities or small towns or in Australia. They all agree that this is a space and place that we should be moving into. It's envisioned by the young people themselves as a grassroots movement. What does that mean? It's got to start at the maraes. It must start here, at home first. And for them, they think that that looks like kōrero. It looks like wānanga, like what you saw in the movie. So these conversations are already happening in some iwi. It's about encouraging them in all iwi. How can we embrace and uplift each other? Okay. And the other thing that I think I'll finish on, that our young people are quite wise to understand, is they understand how crucial our intergenerational relationships are, especially for those of our elders that have access to our mātauranga Māori, that are willing to share and impart this knowledge before their time here ends. And our intergenerational relationships have almost been disrupted, whether that's through colonisation, through urbanisation, globalisation, but we still understand in order to move forward it must be together. I cannot go home and tell my elders, this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to do it. It does not work like that in our world. In order to make true sustainable change, we must all come together. So, to finish, e kore au e ngaro, e kākano e ruia mai I Rangiatea. I am never lost. I am a seed of Rangiatea. This whakatauki talks to the fact that our young people are hungry for their knowledge. They are hungry to not just have the knowledge, but to begin to apply it, to begin to activate it and pass it on to the generations that are to come. It is not a mere want, but a responsibility, a conviction that our young people have. So, ngā mihi, thank you very much for listening to my kōrero. And we have the beautiful Sonia up next.